Okay, you guys are going to write a paper. The paper is going to be over Hurricane Andrew. Let's first look at what the paper, how it needs to be done. So the paper will be typed. The title on the title page is going to be Hurricane Andrew. You're going to put your name, the class, either aquatic science or earth and space, and the date. The paper will have 1-inch margins. The paragraphs will be double spaced. It will be Verdana 12 font. Can't be anything typed on the back, and it must be stapled. All right, the way the paper is going to be written, you have to have an introductory paragraph, you got to have the body of the paragraph, and you will have to have a conclusion paragraph. All right, so the things that need to be in the paper. You need to include how hurricanes form. You can use the back of your foldable. It's got the stages there. Where hurricanes form, we know they form mostly in the tropics. The water temperature needed. The fourth thing here, we need to have the stage, whether it's a depression, a storm, or hurricane, the dates that certain things occur, the wind speed, which you can find on the coordinates worksheet that you will use, and the pressure ranges of specific starred locations. And I will show you those starred locations here in a second. Number 5 here, direction of the track of the hurricane from beginning to end. You'll use north, south, east, west, northwest, northeast, southwest, or southeast. Number 6, location in relation to land. Islands, continent, states, whether it's going north of these islands or in between these continents, you need to tell me where it's moving through as it moves along its track. And I want you to use specific island names, continent names, and state names. Number 7, we need to look at specific landfall locations. And the information I want for these is circled. And I will show you those here in a second, but I want the stage. So when it hits landfall, what stage is it at? Whether it's depression, whether it's a storm, or whether it's a hurricane, the date that this occurs, the wind speed that is occurring at that location, and the pressure ranges and the damage, which is also found on the in your foldable. The damage rating, whether it's extreme or moderate or catastrophic. The last thing that you need to have in your paper is the total damage in billions of dollars caused to the U.S. by Hurricane Andrew, and you will have to research that number. All right. Okay, so some of the information that needs to be in the paper is here. This is what you can use part of how hurricanes form, the stuff that's underlined and in bold. This right here, same thing, how hurricanes form. This information here needs to be in your paper. And this is the scale that's here. This is the wind speeds and pressure, and over here is your damage: minimal, moderate, extensive, extreme, and catastrophic. And what also needs to be in your paper at each stage that I show you here in a second, whether it's a tropical depression, whether it's a storm, whether it's a hurricane, you need to work in these 3 definitions into your paper. So when you're talking about it forming as a depression in the Atlantic Ocean, you need to tell me what a depression is. When it changes from a depression into a storm, you need to tell me what a tropical storm is. And when it transforms into a hurricane, you need to tell me why it's a hurricane. All right, so let's look here. I need you to get out your map. So get this map out. If you need to stop it, and go ahead and get it out. All right, so the highlighted locations, or the locations, the starred ones that I want the information for, where it says starred locations, is going to be this first one. Okay, so this first one right here, this low pressure depression that we have right here, this is a starred location, so put a star next to that. There is also going to be a star next to when it turns first into a hurricane. So right here where it's turning into a hurricane, you need to put a star next to that. And then when it ends and dies out up here, you need to put a star up here where it dies out. So that's the information for the starred locations. So this first one here, you can see where it's a low pressure system, depression, then it turns into a hurricane, then it goes back into a depression there. Okay. Now I need you to circle 3 locations. The first location that I want you to circle are the Bahamas right here. So circle that location right there. The next one I want you to circle is where the hurricane goes over the southern tip of Florida. And then the other location that you need to circle is when the hurricane hits Louisiana. So circle those 3 locations. Those are the circled locations, and in your paper there needs to be information about each of those. So let's go back. Okay, what we need here, remember, I need to know how a hurricane forms as it goes through the different stages, which is on your foldable, where they form. We've discussed this, the water temperature that's needed for it to form a hurricane. This part right here, this is what I was talking about just now, the starred locations, the 2 lows, and when it turns into a hurricane. I want the stage, I want the dates that this occurs, I want the wind speed that it's at that location, which is going to be off of your coordinates worksheet, and the pressure range at each of those. The other one, the ones that have the circles, which is going to be this here, where they're hitting landfall, and there was 3 spots where they were hitting landfall. I want the stage that it was at when it hit landfall. I want the date that it hit landfall. I want the wind speed that it was at when it hit landfall. And I want the pressure range that it was at when it hit landfall, and the damage that was occurring. And again, that's in your foldable. The damage that's occurring may be catastrophic, may be minimal, all right? And then at the end of your paper, I need you to tell me the total damage in billions of dollars that was caused to the U.S. by Hurricane Andrew. So again, you need to make sure that this paper has a title page. This right here is written in the middle of a piece of paper. Sorry, it is typed in the middle of a piece of paper. And as you start typing, make sure it's 1-inch margins, double spaced, Verdana 12, and you must have an introductory paragraph, minimum of about 3 to 4 sentences, the body of the paragraph explaining to me everything about Hurricane Andrew, and a conclusion bringing it all back together. So basically what you're doing is you are turning this map into a paper from beginning to end of Hurricane Andrew. You are writing a paper that if I read your paper, I could follow it step by step, seeing that it starts out in the Atlantic as a low pressure depression. It moves west and northwest around specific islands, turns into a hurricane right before it hits the Bahamas, goes over the Bahamas, continues over the southern tip of Florida, turns northwest, and runs into Louisiana, and then does kind of a right turn going northeast as it dies back out in the form of a depression in the north part of Alabama. So basically you are writing a paper telling me step by step what's going on here, and make sure again that you use all of this information here in your paper. Use this in your paper. Use all of this in your paper. Use all of this in the paper when it's going through those hurricanes and you're telling me the stage. Tell me it's a Category 1 hurricane or a Category 2 hurricane, and tell me the wind speeds when it's at that location. So when it actually is a hurricane, you need to tell me in the paper it's a Category 2 hurricane at whatever wind speed it's at with these ranges. And when it's over land, you need to tell me what type of damage could occur: minimal, moderate, extensive, extreme, or catastrophic. And make sure that when you are writing the different stages, depression, storm, and hurricane, somewhere in your paper, you need to work in these definitions one time. So you only need to write these definitions in there one time.